And
Hey,
so
Bill, I think we're having a hard time hearing you.
Say again?
Said we're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. Is that better, sir?
That is much better.
All right. Then I will talk directly into the new microphone. That brings us then to the moved item 11.4. Mrs. Smith?
Oh. Good evening, everyone. So at the regular board meeting on October 15, 2020, the board approved resolution number 11, 2021, authorizing the district to sell the Rand property. Notice of the sale of the property was sent to public entities and nonprofit organizations and published in a general circulation newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks. Due to the fact that no response was received by public entities or nonprofit organizations within 60 days, the board may now sell the property in a public bid process. We will, in support of this resolution, we will now open. We received 1 bid for the property, and I'm going to open that right now. Can you hear me, Joel?
Yes, I can.
I apologize. I didn't tell everyone that we have Joel Kirshenstein, Lisa Kaplan, Sean Kirshenstein, and Kevin McCaddy here who are facilitating the sale of the property.
Okay, for purposes of those who are in the board meeting or watching the board meeting this evening, what we're going to do now, by virtue of a virtual board presentation, is Pam is going to open the bid that came in, and we're going to verify that it is a conforming bid by an acceptable respondent, and we'll do that first, and then we'll go through a request for the calling of any oral bids to see if there's anyone either online or in the audience that wants to be an oral bidder. So having said that, Pam, if you would go ahead and open the sealed bid, and I'll walk you through what we're looking for.
I have it open.
Okay, so now we have the bid that came in for the subject property, and we want basically to look at 2 primary items. One is there a cashier's check?
Yes.
And what is the amount of the cashier's check?
$2,000.
Okay, and that was what was posted in the RFP and the bidder's response form, which is the next item. Is there a bidder's response form?
Yes.
And is the bidder's response form signed?
Yes.
And does it appear that most of the items in the bidder's response form have been addressed?
Yes.
Okay, so what we'll do when Ms. Kaplan takes us through the motion and the resolution, we'll just simply reserve our right as part of the motion, Lisa, to review the bidder's response form during the due diligence period. So the board will have that right. And the board always has the right to accept, reject, modify bids. Any modification will obviously require a continuation to see if that's acceptable to the bidder. But typically, we're not responding, making modifications to terms that were acceptable when the RFP went out. It's only if the respondent puts in some things that are not acceptable to the board. But I don't think, based on the fact that just the bidder's response form came in, we should be okay with that. So having said that, would you please announce the amount of the offer that's come into the district? Because it's now an offer, not a bid.
$40,000.
Okay, so for the record now, the district has received an offer for $40,000 for the subject property. I will ask the board, not by I'll flip it around differently, and Lisa can ride shotgun on this. I'd just like to know if there's any exceptions to the $40,000, which is at or above the amount that was in the authorized to go out in the RFP. Okay.
Anyone have any exceptions? No,
Hearing
sir. None.
Hearing no exceptions, we'll make note of that. And now we'll slowly, just in case there's someone online or on the phone or in the audience that we can't see, is we will ask, is there a bidder who has not submitted, and again, the education code is set up this way, that is either online, in the audience, on the phone, who has a cashier's check that could be either brought over immediately or be present at the district office with the cashier's check and a bidder's response form completely filled out, who would like to make a bid at 5% above the $40,000, which would be $2,000. And if there is, we would just then continue the bidding with $2,000 increments. So I will slowly ask that question. Do we hear anybody, and does the board see anyone that's raising a hand that would like to bid?
There's no one in the audience who has indicated.
Okay, no one in the audience. So we'll let the record show that at 7:10 or so.
7:07 p.m. The record should reflect that there were no oral bidders in the audience. Are there any oral bidders online currently right now?
We have no electronic interest expressed.
Perfect. Make sure that the record reflects that there was no one in the audience and no internet, telephone, or WebEx connection for accepting a different oral bidder.
See how Ms. Kaplan watches me closely, even with 3-minute gap in the interpretation of the time. So, but it's important to have that record. Okay, so having clarified that, we what I would like to do before we go any further is Mr. Shotwell present in the audience?
Yes, he is.
He is.
Okay. What I would like to do, again, because this is an unusual, these virtual bidding, if you don't mind calling Mr. Shotwell up to the podium and having him state his name, state his address. He may even want to tell you a few things. I learned something from him this afternoon about his business, which is very fascinating, and that what was reflected tonight does reflect his offer and his executed document. And then if he would stay at the podium, I'll go to the next phase of where we're going from the purposes of escrow. And that's what, and Mrs. Kaplan will take the notes on that and then take you through the resolutions.
Mr. Shotwell, would you approach the podium?
Go up.
Thank you.
And introduce himself to the board and verify that everything that was said about his bid is correct and that he submitted it.
Howdy. My name's Neil Saren Shotwell Jr. I was born in Ridgecrest. Went to school in San Gabriel Valley, came back, went to work in Trona, been out in Trona for going on 34 years, work at the power plant there. Then I took over my family business, The Joint in Randsburg. It's been a big part of my family and history since 1955. And very proud of it, what I've done with it. And this school is really important to me since my dad and his brothers all grew up in that area. And pretty much just pleasure being here.
You're okay with the interpretation of your offer, and that is you, and you did submit the cashier's check.
Yes, sir. Okay,
so we now have both the buyer and the seller having a meeting of the minds by this process. And while Mr. Shotwell's up there, here's my recommendation, or our team's recommendation, is that we move forward and open escrow at Lawyer's Title in Ventura County.
President Ferris, I'd like to make the motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation that we adopt Resolution 21-2021, awarding bid for the sale of surplus school district property as presented.
Okay, and just as a comment behind that,
Second.
I'm sorry.
It's been moved and seconded. Go ahead, proceed.
Okay, yeah, and I just want to make one.
Second, and for purposes of continuing discussion on the resolution.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'm also recommending to both sides is that the escrow be open for a 60-day due diligence period, which will allow for the buyer to have his due diligence to have a more detailed review of the property. He has represented that he has gone out. I believe Pam made arrangements to that, but he's already seen it. But now he goes into a more specific review. So we would recommend that when we open up escrow, we would have 60 days with a 30-day extension if needed. And that would be through, again, lawyer's title. And then any of the escrow terms and conditions all have to be brought back to the board for a final approval at a later date. And we will do that. We will do that forthwith, but we will open up escrow tomorrow. Those would be the basic terms of opening up the escrow.
And is that acceptable to you, Mr. Shotwell?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, can you just make sure, as we've only had one verified bidder, it is in the resolution, put down the name that he submitted in his paperwork?
Yes.
She said yes.
You want me to do that right now?
I believe so.
Yes. I'm sorry. I did, Pam. I missed hearing.
She said yes, and she's having that done right now.
Okay, perfect. We just need to make sure, while it does take a little time, that that is officially written in before the board
Sure.
take votes on that action.
Okay, so I'm going to keep it in Lisa's hands now to continue on with the direction on the motion and the resolutions in order to conclude the item.
Well, the record has been reflected that there is a motion on the resolution in front of them and a second. At this point, a vote from the board would be to accept the bid by Mr. Shotwell at $40,000 and have the property enter into escrow in the next step. So unless there are any questions by the board at this time, it would be appropriate to take roll call.
Any questions for board members? Then we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Myself, Bill Ferris, aye. It is unanimous. Thank you, folks, so much for your help.
Okay, by the way, is that a student board member you have?
The student board member is on WebEx, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to say hello to the student board member and just wanted to pass our appreciation to what her and all of her students are going through this last year. And hang in there, stay with it. And you look like a really wonderful student. And hopefully this experience is, is good for you. But best of luck during all of what's going on now. It'll soon be over. Or not soon, but it's on its way.
I'd
Thank
say, do you
you.
know something we don't know?
Thank you so much, everybody. We'll be in touch with Ms. Smith and move forward on the next steps. But I appreciate your time tonight and patience in going through this process.
Thank
And
you.
Mr. Shotwell, I'll be in touch with you tomorrow as well.
I would just like to say thank you. You're talking about students. This has been a learning experience for me. Thank you very much for your
Us as well.
patience. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, and congratulations, Mr. Shotwell.
And thank you, Pam, for all your patience.
Okay, then that was an interesting exercise. We move to reports and communications. First, we'll move to the student members report, and we have our student member, Madison Johnson, on the screen there. So, Madison, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to start with Murray Middle School's report today. They say that students and staff enjoyed the winter break and have started off the second semester with positive energy. 43 students were nominated for Student of the Month in December. Congratulations. We wanted to expand on the positive energy that we started the semester with and have launched the Pbis Rewards program. Students are rewarded points by their teachers and staff for following Murray behavior expectations. There are a variety of awards that students can redeem their points for once they've earned enough. Some rewards are weekly, some are monthly, and some can only be redeemed once a semester. We just sent home first semester report cards as well as information for students on state testing. Murray teachers will begin having students take the practice test to prepare them for the state testing at the end of April and the beginning of May. Murray will also be hosting a virtual Rockets and Robots assembly on February 9th at 2:15 for students and their families. We're off to a great start and hope everyone has had a great spring semester. Happy 2021. Go Mustangs! All right, next we have Monroe Middle School. They say that results are in for the first round of academic interventions. Math and English collaborated with students who needed the most help with their studies, and the rest of class was released to work with the counselor and librarian. After 5-week systematic intervention process, on average students raised almost an entire letter grade, which is more than 12 times the change before the program's implementation. The team is looking forward to continuing this practice earlier in the new semester to help more students recapture success. The administration team, counselors, and librarian have kicked off their lunchtime social engagement opportunities to help students recover while being caused by the isolation in the global pandemic. It started last Friday during a session of Minecraft with Mr. Cosner. In addition, ASB has launched their January competitions and Spirit Days with the JMMS Virtual Hallway, Tigertown Spirit Newsletter. The competitions include a hoodie fashion show and Chopped, where students are submitting videos of food preparation. Right now, the 6th graders are in first place with Spirit Points, and the 8th graders are right behind them. Go Tigers! And next we have Mesquite High School. They say that we are so excited to have students back on campus again. They're very lucky. We opened 2 learning hubs this week for 16 students. They attend their virtual classes on campus from 7:30 to 10:15. They are dismissed for lunch with a meal from our food services department and then resume online learning from home for 6th and 7th periods. Technical questions are answered more quickly and the internet is more stable for these students. The students have been very focused on their courses. We had another graduate, bringing this year's total to 5. And an ASB yearbook, 3rd quarter after a busy start with Spirit Days and yearbook planning. Students are coming up with creative ways to showcase their distance learning experiences and create a 2020-2021 yearbook. A group of Mesquite students participated in an ATOD workshop with Community Matters yesterday and today. The focus on this workshop is alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention. Mesquite staff continues to participate in various professional development workshops and consultations to strengthen our Pbis program and continue to build our systems of support. And lastly, we have Burroughs High School. Burroughs has entered into a new year and a new semester, and the 3rd quarter is already in full swing. We finished both textbook return and distribution last Friday, thanks to the help of our wonderful staff. The PSAT is quickly approaching next Tuesday, the 26th. Sign-ups have already taken place, and this year was only offered to juniors due to the pandemic. We may not be on campus, but ASB has been extremely busy. We've had some positive participation in Spirit Days, such as Winter Whiteout Day, and challenges including our New Year, New Fit, and Best Four competitions. The seniors have important decisions to make on their class flower, song, and motto, and everyone's looking forward to voting for the Homecoming and King of Hearts courts. Due to new guidelines, indoor sports have not been able to resume practices since winter break, but luckily, outdoor practice started on Monday for some sports. Band sections and the drumline are also starting up outdoors next week. Pure Tutoring, organized by our counselor Stephanie Bailey, will resume this week on Monday through Thursday from 2:15 to 3:30 p.m. in all subjects. If you have questions regarding tutoring, please contact Stephanie Bailey at sbailey@ssusd.org. Please continue to visit bhsblast.org to keep updated through our school's online paper, the Blockbuster Blast. And I would also like to wish everyone a much more happy and healthy 2021.
Thank you so much, Madison. Appreciate that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Move to reports from members of the board. Any board members have anything to report? And we will move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Ostash.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Good evening, everyone. I'll start out as I customarily do with our attendance report. And month 4, our total enrollment was 4,899. And last year this time we were 5,125. Shows us year over year down 226. Interestingly, last month, year over year, we were down 248. So moving in a little bit better trend. But I thought I'd also take an opportunity to update the board on, the attendance, of course, is critical to our funding and how the district receives its revenues. And some might wonder how this is going to work in the current and future years. So what we know so far by the state is that the current year's funding, so the 2020-2021 school year, and next school year, the 2021-22 school year, is to be funded at the 2019-20 ADA calculation. And so obviously the 1,000 school districts, us being one of them, are grateful that because there's some destabilization, some unknowns, it's nice to know that we can plan on some stability of funding. What the experts are calling as and describing as a potential cliff is when we do actually reach the 2022-2023 school year. And based on what we know now, we're informed that we would be funded based on either the 2021-2022 school year or the actual 2022-2023 school year, whichever is better. So the current year and next year are both based on the 2019-20 school year. So we see stability and we know what to project in our multi-year projection for the current and next year. But in the out year, in the 2022-2023 school year, we will be looking at some of our future ADA. So I would say it's relatively good news, and we're able to plan as such. But obviously, we're very sensitive about doing our very, very best job in a distance learning environment, and we're grateful that we have some cohorts and some hubs open, and we're focused on doing our best job now so that we don't have to worry about future numbers. Okay, update on the governor's in-person instruction grant. On December 30, Governor Newsom came online and described basically what we would call a pledge or a promise. It's not something that has actually been formally legalized by the legislature, but all of the channels of information would indicate that the legislature is conceptually in agreement with the idea. We don't know if there will be differences in details, but it's a $2 billion statewide funding proposal that incentivizes school districts, LEAs, local education agencies, to devise plans and to get their youngest learners back into the classroom. So first phase would be getting transitional kindergarten through second grade students into in-person classrooms as soon as February 15, and then scaling up to third through fifth graders as soon as March 15. And if a school district can reach, well, there's a few primary expectations. One is the COVID-19 safety plan has to be in compliance with CDPH and all of the requirements related to the safety plan and submitted to the county. One of the big pieces of that is making sure that you have the proper testing cadence requirements for all of the testing, COVID testing requirements. And then importantly, making sure that the district has memorandum, or in our case, memoranda of agreements with our 3 bargaining units, employee associations. And all of this would have to be submitted to the Kern County Superintendent of Schools office by February 1 if we were to be eligible for the first round of funding. There is a second round of funding of eligibility that would be if you get all of these 3 main items in by March 1. So all of us in the district are taking this very seriously. We've conducted surveys iteratively. Our most recent survey indicated that over 50% of our youngest learners' parents would like for them to be, at least have the option of being in an in-person opportunity. District and data did negotiate this afternoon, and the district formally transmitted an MOU proposal for the in-person instruction grant. I also want to thank Mr. Delbick, who I think is in the audience here. See him out there. The lighting's a little hard to see. For successfully writing a grant that allows us to contract with Jason Harper of Harper Conflict Resolution, LLC, for alternative dispute resolution, known as ADR. Not only does Mr. Harper provide conflict resolution services for us now, but he will also be conducting training for our staff and our faculty, which will build capacity within our ranks to continue our excellent service in special education. Last Wednesday, our SELPA held a community advisory committee meeting where Mr. Harper was a guest and introduced himself and his services to this important committee and all the members. And then lastly, I'd just like to thank the Board of Trustees up here on the dais with me for their time and commitment in helping administration put together our first governance handbook. We met in a special board meeting workshop last Wednesday. We reviewed the draft and then some components of the governance handbook. Include the California School Boards Association's adopted governance standards, important details and statistics for our district, a directory, and an organizational flow chart. And we look forward to bringing this to the regular board meeting next month for formal adoption and approval. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Astesh, and especially the update on the governor's new push. I know we're all very anxious to get our students back in school so that we can meet the needs of our children in a way that's meaningful and the best we can accomplish. And we also recognize the need to do that safely. Okay, at this point then, we will move to report to the Board of Trustees by the Desert Area Teachers Association.
Good evening. Good evening. I swear I'm going to write it down and leave it here. Dr. Astash, board members, community.
We're good. Go ahead.
So let's see. Where do I begin? I want to say first, we were indeed, we did meet a little earlier today. I don't know what I've done more of today, sit in meetings or teach, but it's been a day. But I do want to say Data was very appreciative of the district assuring us that they're enforcing a mask policy. Safety is incredibly important to us, and it was really nice to hear that we're all on the same page there. It's been a pretty good week as far as good news. I do want to give a little shout out as an educator, all my teacher friends. Pretty excited to now have an educator in the White House in the form of Dr. Jill Biden, and it's nice to feel represented, to know that just to have somebody up there kind of looking out for us who believes in public education, as we all do here. I heard some good news this morning on the radio that possibly California cases of COVID have peaked. They're really, really high, so even if this is actually our peak, our descent will be slow, but it will be a descent if this is the peak, and if we all continue doing what we're supposed to do, maybe we'll see it drop. It's not going to be anything speedy, but I'll take any kind of good news I can get right now. And I want to be really clear that we teachers, all of us educators, all of us in data want to be back with our students. We miss them. We're tired of Zooming. And we know that students thrive in the classroom. We also know that we are teaching and they are learning, but we know that the best place is to be in the classroom. We just want to make sure that safety has to come first. None of this is going to matter if we're not healthy. The students, all the kids, and the staff. We're excited about the governor. It's a proposal. So there's nothing settled yet, and one thing I've learned from being in the classroom is that there's no sure thing, and things move really quickly. But we definitely are interested in being back in the classroom as long as we can have all our safety in place. And if it takes a little longer for all that to happen and the rates to go down, then so be it. But we're gonna look forward to getting us back to where we belong and to continue working with y'all. And brighter days ahead, right? What else could there be? Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item 5, report from the Board of Trustees by the California School Employees Association. We have a representative tonight? If not, we move to communications from the public. The board will provide time during the discussion of each agenda item for members of the public to comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. Comments should relate to items of public interest within the board's jurisdiction. The law prohibits the board from taking action on items that are not on the agenda, but if appropriate, your comments will be referred to the staff for a response. When addressing the board, please state your name and address at the podium and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. In accordance with the board bylaws, the board will limit the total time for public input to 30 minutes. Those wishing to address the board beyond the 30-minute time limit may do so at the end of the scheduled meeting agenda. Do we have anyone wishing to speak this evening under public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to Educational Administration 6.1, approval of revised local control accountability plan. Mrs. Decker.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff and community. See if I can do this without fogging up my glasses. To receive funding under the Every Student Succeeds Act, a local education agency must have a plan approved by the state educational agency. Under the No Child Left Behind era, the federal program plan was known as the Local Education Agency Plan, or LEAP. Under the ESSA era, LEAs that apply for ESSA funds are required to complete the LCAP Federal Addendum template, in addition to the Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP. The LCAP Federal Addendum is meant to supplement the LCAP to ensure that LEAs meet ESSA plan provisions. The Sierra Sands USD's LCAP Federal Addendum documents the district's approach to maximizing the impact of federal programs in support of underserved students. The following federal programs are included in the LCAP Federal Addendum: Title I, Part A, Improving Basic Programs; Title II, Part A, Supporting Effective Education; Title III, Part A, Language Instruction for English Learners; and Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment. Consistent with ESSA Section 1112A5, Sierra Sands must periodically review and revise the LCAP Federal Addendum. We are required to update the description for the Title I, Part A, Educator Equity provision to reflect California's new definitions of ineffective and out-of-field teachers. And I specifically pointed out the page numbers because that document's quite long. It's 14 and 15. The data analysis for education equity trends for low-income and minority students was reanalyzed in light of these new definitions. The updated data trends have been included in the revised addendum. The overall data trend since August of 2019 does show an improvement at all educational levels. The district applies annually for federal program funding through the Consolidated Application Part 1. Currently, the district has received $2,169,738 in funding for the programs listed below. Title I, Part A is $1,773,188. Title II, Part A is $229,796. Title III, Part A is $33,862. And Title IV, Part A is $132,892. The federal LCAP addendum describes the district's overall implementation of these Title I or title programs. It is recommended that the board approve the revised LCAP federal addendum as presented.
Move recommend action.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion by board members? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Houck?
Aye.
And myself? Aye. Makes it unanimous. Brings us to 5.2, approval of Sierra Sands Unified School District 2020-2021 School Accountability Report Cards. Ms. Savko.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community. Since November 1988, state law has required all public schools receiving state funding to prepare and distribute a school accountability report card. The purpose of the report card is to provide parents in the community with important information about each public school. Education Code 35256 requires the governing board to approve all district school accountability report cards and evaluate the data contained in the SARCs as part of the board's regular review of the effectiveness of the district's programs, personnel, and fiscal operations. To access the most recent reports, stakeholders may access the link to the district website at the Curriculum and Instruction and School Accountability aspect of that page. With this information posted on the district website, the cost of wide distribution of these reports has been eliminated. The cost of having a small number of hard copies printed and available is minimal. It is recommended that the board approve all district school accountability report cards for the 2021 school year as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board? Any questions or comments from staff and community? I did have
a
one.
quick question.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do we get a good sense of how much traffic we get? How many people actually look at these things?
Actually, it was the question I was going to ask as well. Do we have the ability to count clicks?
We have the ability through Google Analytics to see how many folks have accessed that particular page, and the average is 12 over the last 3 months, but I do feel I need to reveal this, is that most of those are likely myself, Jared Parker, and Lori McGuire posting and making sure that we're meeting our accountability requirements.
So that includes our own clicks.
Yes, unfortunately, that includes our own clicks.
So we're going to assume that everyone is so thrilled with what's happening that they're not reading them, right?
Well, I would like to add to that. It's interesting, right? Accountability. If you recall, we do have the much more interactive California School Dashboard, which has a lot of comparative data, and it's much more interactive. So it's interesting that we have what I would consider redundancy.
Yeah, by law quite some time ago, in order to qualify for funding that we probably long since spent. Any other questions or comments? Then we'll have a roll call vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. Other policy development and review, there are no items. So we move to personnel administration.
Move 8-1, 8-2, and 8-3.
Before we move 8-1, I need to acknowledge a mistake that was made.
Unmove.
Jessica Constable was listed as a resignation. She's actually a hire. So just to make that official change. Now we're good.
Then with those changes, I'll remove 8-1, 8-2, 8-3.
Second.
8-1 and 8-2 and 8-3 have been moved and seconded as amended. Any comments on 8-3? Hearing none, we will call for the roll call vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Houck?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It is unanimous. That brings us to 8.4, adoption of resolution number 2021, National School Counseling Week.
The purpose of National School Counseling Week is to focus public attention on the unique contributions of professional school counselors within U.S. school systems. National School Counseling Week, sponsored by the American School Counselor Association, highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for a career. This special week honors school counselors for the important role they play in helping students examine their talents, strengths, abilities, and interests. Counselors work in professional partnerships with teachers and support personnel to provide an educational system where students can realize their true potential. As all educators focus their efforts on improving academic achievement for all students, it is important that we recognize school counselors for their continuing efforts in reducing barriers to learning and in providing the support necessary for all students to achieve at a high level. Resolution number 2021 declares the week of February 1st through 5th, 2021 as National School Counseling Week in the Sierra Sands Unified School District. Adoption of this resolution designates a time when administrators, staff, parents, students, and the community have an opportunity to recognize and salute district counselors and their many contributions to our student success. A copy of the resolution will be displayed at all district school sites and on their web pages. I will read the resolution. Whereas school counselors are employed in public schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society, and whereas comprehensive development school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing board of the Sierra Sands Unified School District that all school counselors in the Sierra Sands Unified School District be commended for the contributions they make to successful student achievement and declare the week of February 1st through 5th, 2021 as National School Counseling Week. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt resolution number 2021 as presented and approve February 1st through 5th as National School Counseling Week in Sierra Sands Unified School District.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from people from the public? Then we will have a roll call vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. That is unanimous. And that now brings us back to 8.5, and I apologize, Mr. Auld, I did not introduce you at the beginning of the presentation for your section. So, number 8.5.
It wasn't your fault, it was my fault, because there was a mistake and I had to stop, and so, sorry.
You're most gracious.
The background information is very similar to what you've heard in the past with these contracts and MOUs with regards to providing COVID-19 services. So I'll skip to the current considerations. California Department of Public Health, in its July 17, 2020 guidance, COVID-19 and reopening in person learning framework for K-12 schools in California, published guidance regarding the safe reopening of schools. One component of the guidance is that each district must conduct employee surveillance testing. The CDPH recommends that all employees working with students should be tested once every 2 months. The district is currently contracting with Valencia Branch Laboratories to provide surveillance testing for all district employees. However, there is a need to contract with a local vendor so that surveillance testing can continue without interruption in the case of a special circumstance. In addition, Cal OSHA has issued the COVID-19 prevention regulations. In this guidance, there is direction that dictates how a district is to respond if there were a COVID outbreak at a district site, which would be 3 or more COVID-19 positive cases within a 14-day window. Where it has been determined that there has been a COVID outbreak, all infected employees or those who had close contact with a positive case must quarantine for 14 days. All other employees in the outbreak area must be tested immediately, and again each week until there are no new positive cases within a 14-day period. The district plans to use Ridgecrest Regional Hospital Liberty Ambulance to proctor testing in compliance with the Cal OSHA regulations should there be an outbreak at a district site. Financial implications: the cost per test is $125. Financial implication will depend on the number of tests that are required by the CDPH and Cal OSHA guidance that cannot be facilitated through Valencia Labs. CARES grant will be used to fund surveillance testing, so the cost will not impact the general fund. Superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the memorandum of understanding with Ridgecrest Regional Hospital Liberty Ambulance as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Kim?
I just have one for the testing part of it. What's the plans for offering vaccinations as they get more available?
We're currently working with, and actually very, very excited and pleased with the support the county office is providing. We've partnered with the county office with regards to the surveillance testing. They've been very helpful. And currently, through the county office and the Kern County Department of Public Health, there is an effort underway for school nurses to be utilized as service providers at vaccination locations. And currently, we're looking at, in our community, how we can support that and so forth. Educators are now, correct me if I'm wrong, they are now we're in the tier where they can be vaccinated. We had an update today from Ridgecrest Regional Hospital. As you might have read, they started vaccinations and then they had to suspend them. And as of today, they were given permission to restart. And they are, I believe, beginning tomorrow, going to have their vaccination clinic going. They had over 2,000 calls made to them so far. So they don't like to talk about the volume of vaccinations that are available, we're finding. Nobody says exactly how much there is. However, they do indicate that that it's on its way and that they're going to need help facilitating it, and they're going to look to public school districts to support that. So currently, though, educators in our district or our employees would have to contact either Ridgecrest Regional. They also do it at Savon's, I believe at the South Albertsons, and register to get the vaccination. It's two-part. They're really concerned right now about getting the people that did the first one back for the second one when they had the suspension, and now they're backed up and so forth. So I feel a little badly for them. There was unusual commentary today by the employee at Ridgecrest Regional, whom is always very kind and gracious, and you could tell there was a bit of exhaustion, as if the vaccination process was placed on the very people that have been treating, people that have COVID or otherwise sick. So her feeling of frustration was, now everybody is looking to us to organize this, to make sure that it goes right. And when it didn't go right, there's discontent and so forth. So, anyways.
Any other questions, comments on? Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous. Moves us to 9.1. Mr. Auld? Report on the board nature of resolution complaints.
Yeah, I was just pausing.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Somebody's going to move it, right?
Or they're going to ask me.
Yeah, have we had any complaints?
We have not had any complaints.
So can we just accept the report since we have no complaints? Since
We
it's,
can.
Informational only?
We can. That moves us
Either
to...
that or you can watch
I know
me
we're going to
struggle.
disappoint Mr. All by doing that.
I brought the wrong glasses, so you can watch me struggle with the wrong glasses.
Moves us to 9.2, District Mid-Year Report. Dr. Ostash.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Mr. President and trustee members, you'll recall that during my first regular evaluation process, that it was requested that I bring a mid-year report in this month, and so I've provided it to you, and it was a pleasure to do that. I'd like to mention that the mid-year report is really actually a reflection of the hundreds of employees in the district who are charging forward and dealing with extremely difficult times. And I'd like to specifically acknowledge my cabinet, all of whom are here this evening, and for their professionalism and their perseverance. We're constantly planning and performing, and on a day-to-day basis, things change, and that can be really difficult to adapt to that. But I have to say that just the perseverance and the fortitude and the productivity, the great constructive conversations and sometimes debates, and just healthy leadership really culminates to the attached mid-year report. All the departments are moving forward and accomplishing things. There are things that are still in process, but there are a lot of notable successes, and I just really want to compliment the Sierra Sands team and the success that I believe that we're seeing. All that to say with great humility that we have a lot of work yet to do. And I didn't mention, like I did last time in my superintendent remarks, but that the board in its wisdom offered its guiding principles during the pandemic, and I often like to re-invoke them just so that the public knows and staff knows that we have a touchstone that we're able to grab onto every single day when we're looking at all of the adaptations, all the changes, all of the unknowns, all of the things that change. And those 5 guiding principles are the health and safety of students and staff, to follow the law and take all reasonable steps to follow that appropriate guidance. The 3rd is socialization and connection with students. The 4th is provide nutritional services to our students. And the 5th is to optimize our means of educating our students. And it really is those enduring principles that we reach to and touch on every day to basically accomplish things and to know which direction we need to go. And so I just wanted to express all of the appreciation because there's a long list of accomplishments and a long list of things that are in progress, but it's the team that's making it all happen. So I respectfully recommend that the board accept the mid-year report as submitted and look forward to any continued guidance from the board.
We recommend action.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions on the report? Anybody have any clarification?
Just
Mike.
a comment. I appreciate the format that you used. I mean, it was a book report. It wasn't, you weren't so inundated with so much information that things got lost. And just appreciate, the way you laid everything on out.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would just like to also recognize what's gone on and what this represents in the way of work and accomplishment in times that we all know are just beyond imagination of the challenge that's being faced, but yet with the consideration of what our obligation is to our community and our students, and appreciate everything everyone has done to work us toward meeting those goals of our kids.
Thank you.
We'll have a roll call vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. That moves us to gifts to the district. Mr. Rockwell? Mr. Rockwell, you read the gifts to the district?
Yeah, no, I'm looking to see if I can unmute and also look at the item at the same time. I think I got it. The following gift was received. Jennifer Gephardt made a cash donation of $200 to the concert orchestra program at Murray Middle School. Donations provide support to the district and have a positive financial impact. I move that we accept the gift as described and send an appropriate letter of appreciation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Then we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It makes it unanimous. Moves us to 10.1, construction report, and that would be Mr. Coit.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community, I'm pleased to give this update on the status of the district's construction activities. This report is presented for informational purposes only and no action is required. So I have two items I'd like to quickly update you on tonight. The first is Burroughs PAC repairs. Repairs to the PAC continue to be on schedule with an anticipated reopening of the PAC in early April. So if you're out and about and you want a tour, where did
Mr. Quick, can I ask you to speak into the microphone? It's tough to hear you.
Okay, I'll try it. So, is this better?
It's better, thank you.
Okay. Repairs to the PAC continue to be on schedule with an anticipated reopening of the PAC in early April. And we're to the point now that if anyone wants a tour, give me a call. And it's starting to look like it's coming back together. And looking forward to having students back in that building and community. And the other thing I'd like to update you on tonight is the name change on our Office of Economic Adjustment, OEA. So when we talk about our Richmond School and our grant, we're always talking about DOD OEA. So I have to change a mindset here. I don't know how many times I'll make the mistake. So the background is the Senate Armed Services Committee Fiscal Year 2021 National Defense Authorization Act stipulates the Office of Economic Adjustment will be redesignated as the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. So I think that acronym now is going to be Old CC. The grant funding program for Richmond remains the same. We have been assured by our project manager, Sigmund Ciceri, that the DOD grant program will remain as it was with just the change to the name. We have made the recommended changes and clarifications to our planning grant application and will submit our application to the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation next week. Thank
you. Excellent. As long as it doesn't cost us any money, right?
We hope not.
Every couple of years, we have to change the name to confuse people, and in the process, add another couple letters to the acronym. It's great.
Any other questions of Mr. Coit? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brings us to 11.1, Business Administration. Ms. Smith. First item, authorization to enter into an agreement with the Government Financial Statistics and Municipal Advisory Services in support of a potential 2020-2021 tax and revenue anticipation note, otherwise known as a TRAN.
So the 2021 governor's budget includes $11 billion in deferrals in lieu of a proposed 10% reduction of LCFF funding. Deferrals result in gaps in the revenues received by the district and in some cases impact the ability of the district to meet cash flow requirements. In the event that a district does have cash flow issues, one of the most cost-effective means of borrowing is through a tax and revenue anticipation note. Kern County Superintendent of Schools has advised the district that they will be issuing a TRAN and that SSUSD may participate in that process if necessary. The district has been working with Government Financial Strategies for the last several months to analyze the district's projected cash flow and determine if it will be necessary to borrow funding through a TRAN. Although it is not certain that the district will need to borrow, GFS has provided an estimate for their municipal advisor services in support of this effort. The cost will only be incurred if the district finds it necessary to participate in the KCSOS Trans Pool. The scope of services provided by GFS are identified in the attachment to this board item. The estimated cost for these services is $5,600 plus a portion of a flat fee of $16,800 to be allocated to each participating district based on the number of participants in the pool and the amount of the district note. As noted above, if the district chooses not to participate in the county pool, no costs will be incurred. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board authorize the district to enter into an agreement with GFS for municipal advisor services in support of a potential 2021 TRAN as presented.
Move the recommended action.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from people from the public or staff? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous. Brings us to 11.2.
Each year, the county auditor controller informs the district of potential claims and/or litigation regarding property tax revenues. By resolution, the school board of the district is required to either impound or release prior impounds of a determined dollar amount in connection with these contingent liabilities. The county council has recently notified the district of an insufficient amount of local tax revenues in the impound fund due to recent claims pending appeal. Therefore, the impound fund shall be replenished from local tax revenues collected in April and May to cover the contingent tax liability. Increasing the balance in the impound fund does not create financial impact to the district. Although impoundment of local tax revenues will not be deposited into the general fund, the state will offset the decrease in property taxes with a proportionate increase to state aid, so that the LCFF goes up if the taxes are down. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt Resolution 18-2021, authorizing the superintendent to determine the amount of monies that should be impounded into the impounds fund and to notify the county auditor's office in writing the amount to be impounded from local tax revenues and the effective date for such release.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from board members? Any comments or questions from the public or staff? And we'll call for a roll call vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It is unanimous. Brings us to 8.3, approval of resolution number 19-2021.
California Ed Code Section 17545 and SSUSD Administrative Regulation 3270 state that the governing board may sell for cash any personal property belonging to the district if the property is not required for school purposes or if it should be disposed of for the purpose of replacement or if it is unsatisfactory or not suitable for school use. The district owns a 1997 Alho fifth wheel that was donated to the Burroughs High School Auto Shop program several years ago. The fifth wheel is no longer of use to the district. In accordance with Ed Code Section 17545, the district may offer surplus property for public sale if the board unanimously declares the property surplus. The district performed online research to assess comparable values, and it's estimated that the value of the property is between $4,500 and $5,500. The district will sell the property to the highest bidder or reject all bids. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt resolution number 19-2021, authorizing the district to declare the 1997 Alho fifth wheel surplus and approve disposal of the property by public sale as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members?
I just
Johnson.
have, so why do we accept it in the first place?
I have no idea.
I mean, we didn't have a vehicle to even tow the thing, so we got something we took to, I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know why we even took it in the first place.
Yeah, me neither. That was before my shift.
I don't remember.
I think they were thinking about maybe using it for the superintendent's office.
A portable office.
Any other questions or comments?
The only good thing, it's a good time to sell trailers with what's going on now.
Sure.
And I told Mr. Shotwell this might go hand in hand with what he plans.
I was thinking we should have had a package deal up at the
Yeah,
Rand. You know?
And we're not giving it to a scrap dealer, so that should make some people happy.
Yeah, there you go. And Kurt, this could actually be lived in.
Could have put that on the Rand property, and that would have got the kitchen there that we needed.
That's true.
A lot better deal.
Oh, hindsight's great, isn't it? Mm-hmm. All right. I think we're ready for the vote on this thing, right?
Yes.
Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. That's unanimous. We've already done 11.4. That moves us to 11.5. Report to the Board of Education on the governor's proposed budget. Mrs. Smith.
And I'm sure you guys have all heard a lot about this because everybody's talking about it, but this is a quick summary of the governor's proposed January budget. So revenues for the state are significantly higher than were expected last June. Personal income tax and capital gains are up for employed and wealthier individuals. Sales tax revenues were higher, probably due to federal stimulus funding, and confidence in additional federal relief funding coming is making the market good. As a result, Prop 98 funding for 21-22 is projected to be $88.1 billion, which is more than what was projected last year for next year. Key elements in the proposed budget include $2 billion to fund a combined 3.84% COLA. They're retroactively restoring the 2.31% COLA that we did not get this year, plus giving a 1.5% COLA for next year, but both will be funded in the 21-22 year. There's a $9.2 billion funding to buy down apportionment deferrals for the 21-22 year, leaving a balance of $3.7 billion in deferrals. So they will pay down all of the 21-22 deferrals with the exception of the June deferral, which stayed, and we'll get that funding in July. $2.1 billion in one-time funding to incentivize a return to in-person learning, and we've all talked about that. A temporary reduction in employer pension contributions, and a $4.6 billion funding to establish grants to expand learning time and academic intervention, which is focused on learning loss related to the pandemic and targeted at higher risk students, although they haven't published yet the method for distribution of that funding or what the requirements are. There is also $85.7 million to fund a 1.5% COLA for non-LCFF categorical programs, including special ed, child nutrition, and state preschool programs. There will be deposits to the public school system stabilization account, which will result in a balance of $3 billion, which will trigger a 10% cap on district reserves for the 22-23 fiscal year. Lori projects this will impact our district, and so we may be bringing resolutions to the board in the future that will reallocate some of our Fund 17 to other funds to protect that money. It revokes the 2021 Budget Act agreement that was going to increase the Prop 98 share of general fund from 38% to 40% in a test 1 year. Instead, the governor will be offering a one-time supplementary payment of $2.3 billion in 21-22. So he had proposed increasing that over the next 3 years in an ongoing manner, and they've revoked that and said they'll go ahead and give us the $2.3 billion supplement, but not the rest. Then there's $305 million in ongoing one-time funding for special ed, $315 million in one-time Prop 98 funding for professional development initiatives, $700 million in one-time and $25 million in ongoing funding to support the partnership of schools with other governmental agencies in addressing the health and well-being of students, and $1.5 billion in Prop 51 bond funds for facilities. It was noted in several of the summaries that although the impact of the higher than projected revenues are positive for the budget, the restrictions that were specified on much of the funding indicate a return to the categorical approach for funding K-12 education, and that they will be taking away much of the local education activities' ability to control how those funds are spent. And as was true last year, it is expected that between now and the time that the actual budget is signed into law, there will be significant changes. And that's pretty much the summary that I have for you. Any
questions of Mrs. May? Thank you so much. We will now temporarily adjourn the meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education to call to order the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority Board of Directors. The only item on the agenda is the minutes. If there are no changes, then they will stand as approved. We will adjourn the meeting of the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority and move back into the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education meeting to go to the consent calendar.
Approve the entire consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we will have the vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Myself, aye. That makes it unanimous. Are there any future agenda items?
I just have one. If we could think about it, if as we start putting up the LTE network in town, it'd be nice to add that to part either the construction update or some kind of update so we keep the community updated on what's going on with that huge endeavor.
That would be a fairly simple thing to add. Would we have concurrence on the board? That's a reasonable request? Okay.
happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we will move to item 15, adjournment. And the next meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education is when? I don't have it here. The 18th, February 18th. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Have a good night. That's all right. I didn't think